Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing a review of The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri. This is book 2 in the Burning Kingdom series, and I do have a review for the first book in the series, The Jasmine Throne, so I'll link that below if you're interested. But this review will be spoiler-free for both The Oleander Sword as well as The Jasmine Throne, because I think that there are some people out there who maybe haven't picked up this series and are waiting to see how it will proceed and how good the subsequent books are before picking up the first book, and I want to just talk about what I think this book did so incredibly well. It's one of the best sequels that I have read. I absolutely loved this, and I just want as many people as possible to pick up this series. So we'll go ahead and get started, but I won't give too much detail about the plot because I don't want to spoil anything for the first book. So first, let me tell you what the series is about. It is an epic fantasy series that is inspired by classical Indian mythology. We have multiple point of views, so lots of different characters, to build a really full understanding of basically a rebellion against empire. We have an emperor, Chandra, who has come into power, and he is a religious zealot, and a lot of people do not like what he is doing. Both people within the empire as well as countries that have been conquered by the empire. They want to overthrow him and freedom from him. We follow in particular especially two characters. One, Malini, who is his younger sister. She's a princess and he wants her to sacrifice herself so that he will gain more religious power, and she is not about to do that. And so she is working very, very hard to try to get a lot of people to rebel against him. And one of the people that she allies with is Priya. Priya is someone who is a maidservant, but she's also something more. She used to be a temple daughter for a country that has been conquered by the empire, and there's certain magic that goes with that, although that has been crushed by the empire. And so they form an alliance and also a little bit of a romance in their efforts to rebel against the empire, and we follow them as well as many other characters in their efforts. So now I want to talk about what I think The Oleander Sword, as the second book in the series, did so well, starting with the way it expanded on the world building and the magic that was introduced in the first book. So this world is really, really fascinating. We have all of these different countries that are part of the empire, and each of these countries has different cultures and histories and religions and magic. And what's really fascinating is the way that all of those are built upon and delved more deeply into. Especially the magic systems are really, really expanded in this book. I think it's so fascinating that each of these countries has a different religion, and each of those religions has a magic associated with it, and those are all actual magic in this world, but they're quite different. One of the countries, the people who believe in that god, they get prophecies from that god of the future, and that plays a big role in what is happening here in the second book. We also have people from Priya's country where they believe in these sort of elemental spirits, the yaksa, and these yaksa give them powers over the earth, over plants and thorns and trees and flowers, and it's absolutely wonderful the way that that magic is woven in. It's kind of beautiful and terrifying at the same time. And then we have the magic of the empire itself, which is this belief in human sacrifice, basically giving this kind of magical fire and ability to kind of conquer all enemies. And it's just so fascinating watching the way that all of this magic is expanded upon, and as we do more things with the politics, we see more of the magic coming into play, and it is so, so cool. I also love how much political intrigue and military strategy is in the second book. We have so many different characters who are all basically trying to set themselves up and their countries up and their people up for the best future that they can, and they have to make so many judgment calls and so many negotiations with other people that are very, very fine balances. And so we see this constant vying for power and position, and people changing their minds and betraying things, and it's just just all this complicated, beautiful political intrigue. And additionally, we have tons of military strategy because this is a rebellion and we have people who are fighting battles, and there's issues of sieges and issues of surprise attacks, and military strategy as to how best to approach things when you're outnumbered. And so I loved how much political intrigue and military strategy was just integrated into this story. There's also a huge focus on personal connections in this story, and in particular the way that people connect when they have very torn loyalties and how that affects things like romances. So there are so many characters in this who are torn between their loyalty to different people, to causes, to their country, and they have to make so many decisions about what is the best choice and how do they support the people that they love but do what they think is right. And they're constantly having to negotiate those choices. This is incredibly present when you look at any of the romances, and there's a couple of different romances that are going on in this book that are all incredibly slow burn and beautiful, but one of the big ones is between Malini and Priya, and the way that they have just so much desire for each other but also such a burning need to make sure that they look out for their people and their country, and how they have to negotiate that together is absolutely fascinating. And I was so invested in their relationship and the relationships of all the other people who are navigating these really complicated questions of loyalty. The themes in this story were also really fascinating, in particular the themes of patriarchy as well as religious extremism. So patriarchy is a huge theme in this. We have a ton of female characters that we get as points of view, and we have them from all sorts of different walks of life. We have servants, we have warriors, we have princesses, and each of these women is trying very hard to protect people around her, or fight for power, or really manipulate things to get them where they want them, where they see the world should be, or just do what they think is right. And constantly they are battling up against the patriarchy. There's people who undermine them, there's people who don't have faith in them, there's people who want to use them but not allow them their own power. And so we see all of these different women fighting tooth and nail for their position. And we also see especially Malini fighting against the patriarchy of her brother, who is also an extreme religious zealot. So he is somebody who reminds me actually a lot of the way I've heard incel, or involuntarily celibates, described, where he seems to think that women exist solely for his needs and his gain, and he is completely angered when any woman thinks that she has the right to do anything for herself that isn't in his service. And so his sister really angers him. And the amount of ways that this describes how these interactions work, and how people, even people who are maybe doing their best, fall into these systems of patriarchy, is really excellent discussion. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is just how intensely satisfying this book is as a second book in the series. The stakes in this book are definitely raised from the first one. We have really huge events happening across this world for so many different characters. There are a lot of consequences as well. There's quite a bit of death and very bad outcomes for lots of different people. So very high stakes in this. And we have a story arc that I think is beautifully complete. So in the first book in this series, I thought that the story arc was excellent and complete. And in this one, I thought it did such a great job of having that really compelling story arc that makes this story stand on its own, even though you can tell at the end what's being opened up for the last and third book in the trilogy. So I think that that is such an excellent thing for a second book in a series to do. This does not suffer from middle book syndrome at all. I was incredibly invested. There was so much going on. I was so just really wanting to know what was going to happen, attached to the characters, moved by what was happening, and felt so much satisfaction at the end of the story arc at the end of this book. So I think that that is a very strong second book in the series. Overall, I think that the Oleander Sword is an amazing, amazing sequel to the Jasmine Throne. I really loved it with my whole heart. I devoured it in just a few days, even though it's around 500 pages, and I cannot wait for the third book in this series. So if you guys have read this book, or if you've read the Jasmine Throne and are interested in this, or if you haven't picked up the series and are thinking about it, I'd love to hear from you. Just leave me a comment down below.